Boom, another video complete. I'm actually really happy I got this one out before 2020. It was a bit of a close one, but we finally got it done. Let's celebrate! Oh, this is all we have in the fridge? Guess I'll take this. It's probably alright to drink.
Several months later.
Oh boy, it's the first day of January. I can't wait to get started on my next video. Well. Oh hey, you just caught me working on my indie game. Now there have been a ton of successes with indie games in recent years, including Mighty No. 9 for the 3DS and the Ouya, so I wanted to throw my own hat in the ring. Okay guys, development update, I finally got a preview of my game working. Let's check it out. It's a work in progress. We're gonna let my game sit in the oven for a little bit. People always go on about this or that on how a game should have stayed in the oven for longer, so we're gonna try a little bit of that ourselves. Anyways, while my indie game is grilling, I've got nothing else to do today. So let's spend the rest of the day talking about some of my personal favorite indie games, and maybe talking about them will give my own personal one a little bit of luck. Indie games. Now what's an indie game, you ask? For that, let's check in with my good old friend Wikipedia. That sounds about right. The actual definition of an indie game, going back to my favorite Uncle Wikipedia, is a game typically created by individuals or a smaller development team without the financial support of a large game publisher, in contrast to most AAA games. Now what's an example of an indie game and a AAA game? For an indie game, I would say a pretty good example is Minecraft. And for a good example of a AAA game, I would have to say Minecraft. It makes sense, I swear. There are all kinds of indie games out there, and indie games would be your smaller scale project, like a fun retro-themed 2D platformer, an interesting roguelike card game, and a game where jelly beans commit war crimes to their fellow man. No, I'm not kidding. So without further ado, let's get started, because oh boy, making this video was a huge mountain to climb. Celeste, a game everyone told me was fantastic and I should play it right now. I got it when it was free on the Epic Games Store around a year later. But trust me, I don't feel proud of being tardy to the party on this one, because this game is very rock solid. Get it? Rock solid? Because a mountain is a landform that rises high above. All puns aside, I think this game is truly phenomenal, and I would even go as far as to say that this is the best 2D platformer I've played in the last couple of years. Now, tons of people like to compare this game to a game called Super Meat Boy, one of the classic examples of a great indie game. I would say that Celeste is just a tier above that game though, starting off with the controls. The controls are so tight and responsive, right up there with, in my opinion, the best controls in any video game, Super Mario Odyssey. My only small complaint is sometimes when I try to dash up and to the left or right, sometimes it just goes up. But that only happened to me once or twice throughout my entire playthrough. Speaking of which, I love this dash. Now dashing isn't unique to this game, not at all, but the way they shape every level and every platforming challenge around it in-game makes it that much better. Learning what direction to dash, timing it, and sometimes having to snag these crystals midair to get a second dash is integral to not dying in this game. And trust me, you'll be dying. A lot. Like 637 times a lot. It never feels too bad to die though. You always respawn relatively near where you died, and every time minus one or two exceptions, I'd say it's 100% your fault, and not the game's. I want to mention the level design of Celeste, but I won't be talking about it for too long, or else I'll spend an entire day talking about Celeste's level design again. Yes, there was a first time. I think the genius of this level design is obvious, even to people like me who know nothing about game design. To start, each chapter of the game has a unique gimmick that matches with the environment and introduces opportunities for neat platforming challenges. Chapter 1 acts as the tutorial, focusing on you using your main dash ability, while Chapter 2 expands on it with the introduction of this goo you can dash through, while Chapter 3 introduces this new goo that you have to maneuver around quickly or you die. In Chapter 4, and it finally comes together in this beautiful package in the last main level, the summit, and it all just works perfectly together. Not again. We talked about gameplay for a bit, but now let's talk music, and my god, this is good. This game has a banger after banger, and every song helps to build the weird, scary, and ultimately fulfilling environment that is Celeste Mountain, all the way from the tutorial level all the way up to the summit, and all the quiet moments in between. This game delivers. Something that goes right along with the music is the story, and the story they tell with this game and the music is beautiful. I noticed this even though I've never really been the one to care about story in a video game. I grew up playing Mario and Sonic. Do you think I would know a good story in a video game if it slapped me in the face? I loved how they presented the story for this game, and the story is extremely relevant in this time period as well. I don't have the time to write a thesis on why this story is fantastic, and I don't want to spoil anything. So all I'll say is this story just makes you feel. Doesn't make you feel like Spider-Man, doesn't make you feel like Batman, but it just makes you feel exactly what it wants you to feel the whole way through. I could go on and on and on, but you get the gist. Get this game as soon as you can. I promise, you will not regret it. But now that we're done talking about Celeste, let's move on to killing the tower. Wait, that doesn't sound right. I knew that would come in handy one day. Slay the Spire, a game that I definitely think has fallen to the wayside in the past year. Like seriously, I haven't heard anyone talking about this game this year at all, when in my opinion it's only gotten better since it launched in 2019. Now this game is in an interesting genre called the roguelike card game, and let me explain how the game works. Every round you start off with the same 11 cards, and you choose your path via this map. For every monster fight you win, you get a selection of 3 cards, and you pick one to add to your deck. Each card requires a certain amount of energy to use, so you have to strategically decide whether or not you want to try to block incoming damage, or if you just want to wail on them and make them die. Now, I did ask Sun Tzu, you know, that guy, but I never did get a response back from him on his take with all of this. Like, how hard can getting in contact with a 2,515-year-old dude be? Now the cards you get per run through aren't completely random. Each of the different characters have a large set of cards that amplifies their playstyle, and the chances of getting the same exact cards back to back, even on the same character, is extremely low. Each character also has a unique passive and playstyle with the cards they have, and there are definite advantages and disadvantages to each character, but most importantly, they are all viable, and I love that. Slay the Spire's strongest aspect, however, is its replayability. There are so many cards to unlock, so many different enemy types, and there are several bosses you can encounter each floor. I can guarantee you will see at least one new thing every single run through. And this game encourages several playthroughs, because god, this game is hard. Some bosses are just complete and there are some turns that you need to shield, but all you have are attack cards, and the RNG is just super bad. But at least to me, that's what makes the runs where I actually get good cards and I get to the final floor really special. Again, is it complete bullshit sometimes? Yeah, but all card games are like that to a degree, so I can't really dock it too much. Besides the game itself, there really isn't too much else to note on. The game runs fine on my relatively weak PC, which is good. The animations get the job done, although some of the attack animations are a little lame. The music also kinda just gets the job done. It's nice background music, but nothing I would go out of my way to listen to. And if you asked me what the story was, I couldn't give you an answer. But that's okay. Slay the Spire doesn't necessarily need any of it, as the gameplay is addictive enough for me. Now, I own Slay the Spire on 2 platforms, on Switch and on PC, and I already talked about how the PC version runs pretty well. So the Switch version should, right? So let's talk about Slay the Spire on Nintendo Switch. Now, am I happy that this super fun, addictive game is available on a handheld game console? Of course, but I feel the game could have been optimized a lot better. If there are too many cards on screen, or too many enemies in a room, the game starts to chug quite a bit, and when I got the game at launch, crashes were all too common. Good news is, they seem to have smoothed out the crashes since then, and the slowdown doesn't make the game unplayable or anything, but I just wish the Switch version ran just a bit better. And that was Slay the Spire. A really nice hidden gem of sorts I would recommend to anybody who likes breaking down buildings. Now, I can't wait to get into this next game, and let me tell you, you guys are gonna dig it. Shovel Knight has been one of the most talked about and most successful crowdfunded games in recent years, and I would definitely say for good reasons. Now, you could call me just a bit of a Shovel Knight fan, seeing as I own this game on a variety of platforms. I own it on the 3DS, I own it on the Wii U, but most importantly, I own it on a platform that you've never even thought of before. That's right, I own Shovel Knight in real life. Now you may be asking yourself, MikeSpike, why would you want to own Shovel Knight in real life? I don't know. Graphics are pretty good. So Shovel Knight is a weird game to talk about, seeing as when you buy it nowadays, it comes with a whopping 4 campaigns, each of which have different stories, level designs, gimmicks, and a playable boss character. Now to tackle this challenge, I've decided to bust out the mystical, the all-knowing, the all-powerful Spike Scale. Now, if you've never heard of the Spike Scale before, that's okay, because I'm here to bestow this knowledge upon you. Now, the Spike Scale is a 3-point system. It could either be a MikeSpike, the absolute highest honor a game can get, I could just Mike like it, or the game can take a Mike hike and get the heck out. Let's start off with the very first campaign, which used to just be the base game, but now is called Shovel of Hope. In this campaign, you play as Shovel Knight, adventuring across the land, taking down the Knights of the Round Table, the Order of No Quarter, in hopes of finding his companion Shield Knight. Now, is this the most revolutionary story since the last Mario game? Not really, but this isn't a game that requires a story by any means. It has an SNES kind of aesthetic that they're going for, and the last time I checked, Bubsy didn't have a story, so this game doesn't need it either. If I had to say one thing that's better than sex, I would have to say Shovel Knight's level design. Now, I know everyone and their mom has said it at this point, but from the very first level, this game exhibits how great the overall level design is. On my list of the sexiest things imaginable, I have tutorial levels that teach you how to play the game without text boxes on top, and below that, I have the Smash Ultimate Special Edition right Joy-Con. After the amazing tutorial level, you get thrown into a world map straight out of Super Mario Bros. 3, and I like this. It's an extremely efficient way to get from level to level, and you also get a choice of what bosses you want to fight first. Speaking of bosses, this game is set up like any Mega Man game, in which there are 8 relatively big stages that end in a boss, and there's a set of 3 levels to get to the final boss. Each stage has a variety of collectibles, including music sheets you can give to the bard, chests filled with jewels, and not Will Smith in a chest, who will give you a new item if you cough up enough dough. Without making this video last 8 more months, all I'll say is if you're looking for a retro platformer with an amazing difficulty curve, you can't look much further than this. I give Shovel of Hope a MikeSpike. Next up is the Plague Knight campaign, also called Plague of Shadows, and to me, this is the weakest one of the bunch. You play as Plague Knight, and honestly, I prefer how Shovel Knight controls way more. The controls overall here just feel a little less tight, and his jump range is pitiful, although you do have a double jump and a boost. The worst part, however, is knockback from enemies. Getting hit by a single enemy is like a one-way ticket to Mars, and it makes this campaign feel a lot less fun and a lot less fair than Shovel of Hope. Now, is it terrible? Not at all. I just think compared to the rest of the campaigns in this package that it's by far the weakest. I'll have to stick with a Mike-like. And you know, actually, when I said that the worst part of the entire campaign was the enemy knockback, I lied. The worst part was the single text box that was in the tutorial. Frick off, tutorial text box. That was hard to say, Jesus. After that is Spectre Knight's campaign, Spectre of Torment, and this is fantastic. The name of the game here is Mobility, and the amount of options they give you here, such as climbing up short walls, wall jumps, and dashes, make this one of my absolute favorite to control. Spectre of Torment has the second best level design of all of the campaigns, first going to Shovel of Hope, and I have nothing bad to say about it. Even some of the remixed tracks, which all of the stages have, are better than the originals. Spectre of Torment gets an easy MikeSpike. And last but not least, there's King Knight's story, King of Cards. Now the platforming here is... This one's just a card game. 10 out of 10, a million times better than Spectre of Torment, the best Shovel Knight campaign of all of them. You cannot stop me. This is getting 10,000 MikeSpikes. This is getting every MikeSpike I have. It is a card game, baby. Yeah! But if you could even believe it, there's more. This collection of sorts also comes with an entire fighting game called Shovel Knight Showdown, and I love it. This game combines its own style of platforming with a little bit of Smash Brothers mixed in, and honestly, I would buy the entirety of Shovel Knight Treasure Trove for this alone. There are a bunch of stages, a bunch of Shovel Knight characters, and for a side mode, this side mode is better than the entirety of Plague of Shadows. This is another easy MikeSpike in the bag for Shovel Knight Treasure Trove. Well, that's all I have to say about my favorite indie games. Oh hey, my game is done! Alright, so we just got my game out of the oven. Let's see what we got. Darn it, that's just a AAA game! What's up? It's MikeSpike, and we have a bit of a situation. The caring about the Game Boy Advance meter is at an all-time low. Nobody seems to care about the Game Boy Advance anymore. But what if I talk about it on my tiny YouTube show? That'll surely make it go up. The Game Boy Advance, the successor to the money printer that was the Game Boy, came out in North America on June 11th, 2001, and it blazed through the early 2000s with a dominant 81 million copies sold worldwide. The most interesting thing to me about the time that it launched, however, was a complete lack of competition. You really thought that Game Park 32 would beat it out? I did. When your closest competitor is the Nokia N-Gage, it's almost impossible to fail, and the Game Boy Advance sure didn't, and there were a ton of games released for it, making the game library relatively substantial, even to this day. It only helped that the GBA could not only play GBA games, but was fully compatible with old Game Boy games, and even added color to the fossils that they were. Before we get started on my personal collection of software, let's talk about the hardware. And you might be saying right now, wait a second, MikeSpike345, that's not a Game Boy Advance. And you would be right. I personally prefer my Game Boy Advance games to be playable. The thing everyone agrees is the worst thing about the Game Boy Advance is the screen. It still wasn't backlit, or frontlit, or lit at all. I'm honestly just surprised that Game Boy Advance's screen wasn't considered a war crime when it was released. Thankfully, Nintendo crawled out of their caveman dwelling and released this, the Game Boy Advance SP, and with it, they changed everything forever by actually making the screen seeable. My life will just never be the same. That's right, they added a light. But not only does it have a light, it comes with the now commonplace clamshell design, which I personally love, as it makes the system overall more durable and even more portable than it already was. The GBA SP can still also play original Game Boy games, although it looks kinda funny now, making it truly the ultimate Game Boy. Moving over to the buttons, and these feel pretty nice. The A and B buttons are clicky, and the D-pad is honestly one of the best D-pads I've ever used. And the shoulder buttons are okay? They feel fine, but they are really small. They get the job done, but they aren't exceptional by any means. Now let's talk about the speakers, and boy do they sure exist. Is it a great existence? Nope. Okay, so the speakers aren't great, but it's fine. You can plug in headphones, right? Nope. Why do I need an adapter to use headphones on a device called the Game Boy Advance when the first one in 1989 had it? More like the Game Boy Regress. And that was it for the hardware side of things. But now let's talk software. I have my entire collection of Game Boy Advance games and Game Boy games right over here. So let's start off with the rarest Game Boy game you could possibly own. Tetris. What more is there to say other than that it's Tetris? This was a phenomenon when it first released, and now its legacy is cemented in a mobile app created by EA. What a great way to die. I would love EA on my gravestone too! When it comes specifically to the Game Boy version though, I could only describe it as the most pure Tetris experience. There are no holds, no Puyo Puyos, and honestly, it's the cleanest version of this drug out there. The song that accompanies this game has also become legendary, and it's one of the first things people think about when they think Tetris. Other than that, well, it's Tetris. And that's Tetris, something I've only said about twice in the past minute. But hey, in my defense, sure was Tetris. Up next is WarioWare Inc. And surprisingly enough, it's talking about an incorporated business and not the thing that's inside of pens. This is unplayable. Yes, that's right. Wario started his own game company. What did you do on your weekend? This game acts as a mini-game a micro-game compilation, starring Wario and other characters from the WCU. The Wario Cinematic Universe, how could you not know? If I had to describe this game in 2 words, it would be wacky and replayable. Let's talk about the replayable first, and I can safely say this is the most replayable Game Boy Advance game I have. I can instantly throw it in, pick any character I want, and have a good time. Now onto the wacky, and I want to be perfectly clear. This game is made by Nintendo. You know, Nintendo. With that in mind, this game has a section where you are brutally flipping over cop cars and evading the law while you speed to get to your minimum wage day job at the ice cream place. I mean, I'm not sure what I expected. This is Nintendo we're talking about. You know, the developer of Grand Theft Auto. Hey you. Me? Yes you. The one sitting in his room talking to himself. Well, geez, man, you didn't have to say it like that. Congratulations, you just got into the game show. Is this a story from the Game Boy Advance game WarioWare Incorporated or not? All you have to do is tell me which of these stories isn't from WarioWare. And if you get it right, you get absolutely nothing. Ready to go? Well, guess I'm ready as I'll ever be. Wow, what an enthusiastic guest. Here are your options. Is it A, a character having to fight a giant skeleton on top of an ancient Japanese temple because that skeleton poisoned you but you're Asian? Is it B, a character having intense diarrhea from drinking an unknown chemical in their lab? Or is it C, literally just some guy dancing? Is it C? Wrong. It was a trick question. They're all stories from the Game Boy Advance game WarioWare Incorporated. Oh, come on, you just scammed me out of nothing! So overall, WarioWare Inc. has to be the best game I own for the GBA. What, did you need any more explanation? I'm just gonna move on to the next game. Now we got Mario & Luigi Superstar Saga, the game that started off a series that tried to rival the likes of Paper Mario. And when it comes to first impressions, this game knocks it out of the park. This game has easily some of the best sprite work I've ever seen. All of the characters are so expressive, and it's especially noticeable when you look at the later games, how good this game truly looks. this is also a Mario game that stands in the face of everything you expect out of a Mario game. This game does something so crazy, so mind-blowing, so absolutely insane that it's hard to put into words its magnitude. In this game, Bowser is not the main villain. How is that even possible? Instead, this thing is. This game's story is actually pretty funny. Basically, a couple of green beans show up, steal Princess Peach's voice, and replaces it with literal explosives. Well, I guess you could say this story didn't bomb. After that, Mario and Luigi team up to literally jump the state borders to the Bean Bean Kingdom to get Princess Peach's beautiful and less likely to blow up the castle voice back. And they fight the mean beans to the sickest tunes they could pump out of the GBA's tiny speaker grill. Seriously, almost every song in the soundtrack slaps, and it's impressive how good it all sounds still to this day. Something that also hasn't aged today is the battle system, and it's all about this thing, timing. Time your button pushes correctly, and soon you'll have a couple of baked never mind, they just explode. So the battle system is great, the music is spectacular, and the story is relatively original and interesting. But there's one thing that ties this whole package together and makes it just perfect. It's the remaster of the Mario Bros. Arcade game hidden underneath the main game in the menu. Nintendo had this weird period with their GBA games, where they were just added in at random, so let's check out the other game in my collection that has it, Super Mario Advance 2! Oh, I meant to say Super Mario World Super Mario Advance 2. At least this title is accurate, seeing as it's literally just Super Mario World on the Game Boy Advance. But hey, at least you get to play as Luigi! I mean, what can I really say? The pro about this is that it's Super Mario World, but the con about this is that it's just Super Mario World on the GBA in 2001. Like, SNES wasn't that far back off. And that was Super Mario World, Super Mario Advance 2. Now it's finally time to move to the final game in my collection. It's... Sonic Advance 3! Well, I was gonna do it, but the game did it for me! Okay? The Sonic Advance series is never talked about nowadays. When it comes to Sonic in general nowadays, all people say is this. But the Sonic Advance series was a nice little trilogy for the, you guessed it, Game Boy Advance, and I happen to have the third game in my little collection. So, do I think this is the epic conclusion to the Sonic Advance series? What, did you think I played Sonic Advance 1 and 2? Starting with the story, all they show you is an intro cutscene where Eggman is back at it again, pressing red buttons, because something good always happens right after you press a red button. Moving on from this story, I just have to mention that this sprite work is phenomenal. Sonic looks super good, all the side characters like Knuckles and Tails look even better than they did on the Genesis, and the presentation is solid overall. And it isn't a Sonic game if it doesn't have banger music, and there are some tracks here still finding a way to sound good on the aforementioned wonderful GBA speakers. The game also introduces this partner system, and by holding down the R button you can pull Tails to you and do this jump and glide thing. The jump is so broken. I do have two gripes with this game though. The first one being the momentum system. This is likely due to me being completely spoiled by Sonic Mania, but the momentum in this game feels just a little bit off. Sometimes it's harder to go up ramps than you think it should be, and sometimes this happens. Don't even get me started on what that is. Lastly, the level design in this game can be really cruel sometimes, throwing some obstacles in your way that are impossible to react to. So overall, if you're looking for a good 2D Sonic game, don't play this, play Sonic Mania. Well, I just finished talking about the Game Boy Advance on my small YouTube show. Let's check up on the meter and see what happened. I didn't even know that was possible! What's up? It's MikeSpike, and I'm looking for the scariest thing of all time. Now, I've looked through all of history, with Dracula, Sasquatch, and my crippling debt all making the list. But not one of these things truly scared me. So I hopped on the Nintendo Switch eShop, something anyone looking for a scare would do. And what I saw sent shivers down my spine, made me shake with anticipation, and makes me terrified just thinking about it again. It starts with an R, it ends with a D, and the middle of it sounds like what you get after being bit by a feral animal. That's right, Today, we're talking about the Rabbids. And Mario too. A question had haunted the entire human race for some years now, and that question would be, how the do you sell a game with this terrifying creature in it? Well, throw Mario in with it, of course. Mario+Rabbids Kingdom Battle, one of the weirdest combinations of 4 words and a symbol in the English language, came out on the Nintendo Switch on August 29th, 2017, to a resounding Reviews when the game released were actually super positive, but just nobody talked about this game. Apparently people cared more about playing the new Zelda game than they did about this game featuring the Rabbids. That's so bizarre, why would anyone do that? This game's premise looked interesting to me, however, because the second it was revealed, with the main man Miyamoto himself rocking a Kmart Mega Man weapon. You have that for any game, and you got my interest piqued. I then proceeded to do what any person does that is interested in a game, and waited to get it 2 years later for 15 bucks. I have no shame. Well, this sure looks like a Mario game. I'm expecting the Rabbids won't change it up that much. I'm expecting a fun 2D platformer, maybe with some interest. This is a tactical RPG where you move characters behind cover so you can shoot the Rabbids back from where they came. Yeah, I didn't expect much else. So yeah, this is a game featuring Mario and the Rabbids that is closer in genre to a T-rated game where you fight aliens than any of its source material. Seems legit. Yep, it's nothing like your typical Mario game. I just lied 3 words ago. Because just like most Mario games, the story is quite simple. A person in the real world made a device that could combine 2 things into one, so they can solve the energy crisis? Jesus, this is some heavy stuff. They then decide to leave this literally world-altering device behind for a little bit so they can use the bathroom or something, which then leads to the Rabbids popping in out of nowhere with their time-traveling washing machine, and they start messing up the place. They overheat the super goggles though. Poor guy earlier didn't even have enough time to throw a fan into his, I must repeat, literally world-altering device. How do you create a literally reality-shifting device and just forget to put a cooling system in it? That's like Einstein forgetting the M! Anyways, the Rabbids abuse it, they get sucked into a portal into the Mario world, chaos ensues, all that fun jazz. The story gets done when it needs to get done, but now it's time for the most interesting part to me. The gameplay. You show me Mario with a gun, and I want to get to shooting. Luckily for us, this game gets started pretty quickly, and I would have to say overall my least favorite thing about the RPG genre of games is the tutorials that they have. Some tutorials are just straight bonkers, and don't even get me started on Mario and Luigi Dream Team, where they literally have tutorials throughout the entire game. So I gotta give this game massive props for keeping the tutorials very short and sweet, while also giving you breathing room to figure out some things for yourself. My least favorite thing, not only in RPGs, but in any video game, are when you have an option in the menu that you can't use yet because you haven't hit a specific part of the tutorial. As a guy who self-taught himself everything from editing videos to streaming over at twitch.tv/MikeSpikeTV, when tutorials do this, it can ruin an entire game for me. But again, massive props to Mario+Rabbids Kingdom Battles tutorial, as it let me team jump and dash into enemies, 2 essential things you need to know when in combat, when I figured it out on my own, instead of locking me out of these options until the tutorial blatantly explained it right to my face. After that tutorial that doesn't overstay its welcome, you get thrown straight into the combat, which is where essentially most of the meat of this game is. And this meat we're talking about is a giant, juicy steak, because my god, this is so fluid. Everything seems so seamless, from the aforementioned team jump and slide mechanics, to the new moves like the stomp jump you learn later on, through an intuitive skill tree. It just fits together so nicely. Another thing that is seamless is this segue to this episode's sponsor. I'm just kidding. We don't have that. Hey, Raid Shadow Legends, I'll take you at this point. The difficulty curve is perfect as well, starting off with very simple encounters where you just have to kill all the enemies, to intense sections where you have to maneuver around these large smashers, to a hard-hitting mini-boss, and it all ramps up very naturally from the outset. The mission variety ain't bad as well, from standard kill all enemy missions to surviving through waves of enemies to making it to a specific area. There is variety here. I just wish there was a bit more. The get to a specific area missions actually have to be my favorite. Trying to avoid all the enemies and placing your teammates in a way where you can execute a string of team jumps is super satisfying. Altogether though, it fits together wonderfully. It's like a giant puzzle, and this game isn't missing any pieces. That one Hot Wheels puzzle piece I lost still traumatizes me to this day. Another thing that is just as seamless is the transition from exploring to fighting. This game essentially has two modes, with the first one being the exploration aspect. Here, you solve simple puzzles, find these blue cannons that take you to special rooms, and hunt down chests with new items and weapons in them. While this part of the game isn't bad, not by any means, you can obviously tell that this wasn't the major focus of the game. To give credit where credit is due though, this game does a great job rewarding what minimal exploration there is, with rewards like coins and smaller chests containing artwork and more behind almost every corner. The second mode is the combat, and as touched on earlier, this is a super fleshed out battle system. On your turn, you move Mario and his rabbit buddy strategically behind cover, and on your way to cover, you can dash into an enemy that's in your way, and you also have the option to get a boost from one of your mates to reposition yourself or to reach higher ground. You shoot your shot at the enemy Rabbids, they do the same, and move on. It sounds simple, but again, the combos you can pull off, especially with each character's unique active move that can be triggered outside of the normal flow of combat, brings so much variety and strategy to each battle. It never got dull or stale for me. I think one of the things I noticed the most about this game, that I don't notice a lot with other games, is all the small things it gets right. Like how the battlefields you fight on are a part of the already existing environments, how you can fast forward enemy turns so you can keep the game fast paced, how you pick up coins on the battlefield with the same cursor you use to move, how Mario dodges underneath this shot to ensure Luigi will never outlive him. All this little stuff really adds up to make this one of the more unique games on the Switch. Speaking of environments, they are fantastic. I think they managed to find the perfect blend of both the Rabbid world, aka Hell, and the Mario universe within these environments, including the Rabbids messing up everything and making this noise. Not only did they nail the environments, they also owned it with the art style here. This may be due to the sheer blandness of stuff like the new Super Mario Bros. Art style, but the art style in Mario+Rabbids Kingdom Battle is too good, with the perfect blend of colors, cartoony visuals, and not too over-the-top action. Adding to that uniqueness is the soundtrack, which was composed by Grant Kirkhope of all people, the composer for the legendary soundtrack behind the Banjo-Kazooie games, and he does a phenomenal job. The best way to describe this music is high quality but wacky and zany beats, which I think perfectly goes with this high quality but wacky and zany game. Oh, I got just the thing for this. I knew I'd use this one day. One thing I was worried about initially going into this game was the writing, but honestly, it's just pretty solid. There's nothing that'll make you laugh as hard as you laugh at my videos. Hopefully. But there's also nothing that'll make you cringe out of your skin like how my videos don't make you do. Hopefully. And that's everything I have to say about Mario+Rabbids Kingdom Battle. A strange but really interesting unhidden gem for the Nintendo Switch. I think it's really the best descriptor that I have, because everyone knows about this game in the back of their head, but again, just no one ever talks about it. But I saved the one question that's probably burning on all 10 of your fingers as you type the YouTube comment for the end of this video. That question being, MikeSpike, why would you cover Mario+Rabbids Kingdom Battle for a Halloween special? Have you seen these things? What's up? It's MikeSpike, and I'm gonna keep it real with you guys. I'm not feeling all too good right now. I just came back from the doctor, and they said I have a rare condition called NES SNES-itis, And apparently the only cure for that is to play NES and SNES games. How am I supposed to play this? So, you're sick, and the only cure is playing NES and SNES games. It's quite the common occurrence, let me tell you. Sounds easy enough, but it's getting harder and harder to find original hardware that actually works. So we have to turn to more digital solutions, which in the past meant Nintendo's Virtual Console that started way back on the Wii Shop channel. I didn't know it was possible for a store's background music to be better than everything that's in the actual store itself. But here we are. So where does that leave us today? With these two things. This is Nintendo Entertainment System Online and Super Nintendo Entertainment System Online. Two extremely creative names that straight up describe what each one does. One plays above average to what? NES games, and one plays actually solid SNES games. And both let you play with friends over crappy online. So, you're telling me $20 a year for 30-year-old games? That's a steal. Take my money. Take it all, Nintendo. Just take. People joke about this a lot, but I'm gonna be real with you. Buying a 30-year-old game for $5 isn't that much better of a deal back on the Virtual Console. So what are you getting for your cold, hard-earned 20 bones a year? Well, let's talk about the libraries of both NES Online and SNES Online, and determine if it's worth it buying Nintendo Switch Online for... I'm just kidding, I only have Nintendo Switch Online for Tetris 99. Before we talk about the games, let's talk about the app, I guess you could say, you access all these older games from. First off, it's very easy to switch between games, with it being basically instantaneous going from game to game. I know all of these games are basically fossils, but the speed is still quite nice. One thing that isn't so nice is the default layout of all of the games. Why are some games giant and why are some tiny? And why is it just completely random? I would complain more about how atrocious it looks, but it's simple to sort games by stuff like last played and total playtime, and then the menu finally starts to look normal. The settings aren't too in-depth either, with an alright looking CRT filter option if you want. The emulation looks super good already, especially compared to something like the Wii U Virtual Console, so I just prefer the default 4:3 mode. Quickly to mention the Pixel Perfect mode, it makes the image just slightly sharper, so you basically get CRT or no CRT. From here, you can also start up online play. What, did you think I could find friends, let alone friends that'll play NES Online with me? Get out of here! Actually, you can stay if you want to be friends with me. Please? There are some other specific things that NES and SNES Online offer, but not too much. Each game lets you set suspend points, rest in peace restore points, that are just save states, and 4 is a solid number, I'd say. The last big feature to talk about is the hotly debated a couple months ago rewind feature. And whether you hate it or whether you cheat, I think it's at least good that it's an option for scrubs like me who can't beat 1-1. So the way you access these games is pretty simple and definitely gets the job done. So how about them games, huh? Let's talk about the NES Online library first. And let me tell you, I've seen worse NES Online libraries. All your classics are here, such as Mario, Mario 2, Mario 3, Mario Golfing, Mario Tennis Referee, Mario Boxing Referee, and I'm sure Mario is in here somewhere. If you can't tell, there's just a bit of Mario here. Jokes aside though, I actually find this collection quite solid. I would say a lot of games, specifically stuff like Mario 3, Excitebike, and Punch-Out, still hold up pretty solidly to this day. One of my particular favorites is actually Mario Tennis I'm just kidding, it's just tennis. Sometimes the hit detection is a little wonky, but I find it quite addictive considering how simple the game is. And it somehow still manages to be better than Mario Tennis Ultra Smash. That game just can't catch a break. Super Mario Bros. 1 and 3 both feel as great as they always have, and are definitely worth going back to whenever you want. They are just really that timeless. The Legend of Zelda still makes you question your sanity. I still suck at Excitebike. Choo Choo Land is still a game that exists. River City Ransom is a fun, albeit slower running beat 'em up. Ghosts and Goblins is still hard as hell. And Super Mario Bros. 2 is still Doki Doki Panic. So to sum it up, it's not half bad.
I would say more often than not, the games here are actually pretty quality. Well, as quality as NES games in 2020 can be. But, unlike God, it isn't perfect. And to prove that, here's a little known game called The Immortal by EA?
Well, at least they didn't ask me to buy a season pass. And that was the NES's online library. You know, there were some pretty solid titles in there, and then there was The Immortal. So considering how interesting that last game was, I hope the SNES's online library is super.
Now here's the SNES Online Library. To me, this is where video games really got started, and with Nintendo and Sega at each other's throats, it produced a good amount of quality titles. So I expect the collection here to be much more hits than misses, because I'm sorry, but the poor NES could only produce so much. There are quite a smaller amount of games here, but to make up for it, they do indeed have some heavy-hitting titles with much more meaningful content than anything the NES could do. And it also has Super Tennis, so how could it possibly be worse? Answer, it really can't. The Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past, considered one of the greatest games of all time. It was also the closest I ever got to beating a Zelda game. I swear I'll beat it one day. I'm a much bigger fan of linear games, and Link to the Past is still just linear enough for me to enjoy it, while still retaining some of that standard Zelda open worldness.
Yeah, this game alone is worth 5 NES games.
Super Mario World, the sequel to Super Mario Bros. 3 that is vastly superior to it in every way, shape, and form. You Screw Attack. We actually touched on this game a little bit back in the GBA episode, but that was the Game Boy Advance version. So what about the SNES original?
You can't play as real Luigi, he's just a palette swap.
Other than that, it's just the same exact game. That's not a bad thing at all, as Super Mario World is easily one of the most solid 2D platformers ever made. See? You don't even have to touch the ground!
You know, Super Mario World is pretty good. Great, even. But I'm unfortunately gonna have to give it a no real Luigi out of 5 stars. Because there is, in fact, no real Luigi. He's fake. He's just a figment. All of our imaginations. He's not real, man.
Next up is Donkey Kong Country and DKC 2, Diddy's Kong Quest, one of the most eloquently named games of all time, and I gotta say, it's shocking how well these games still hold up. The controls and level design were always great, but the graphics as well are also just kinda timeless, at least to me. You would think the digitized 3D models or whatever they are would start looking bad, but they don't, and they don't impede the game at all. Easily, one of the best parts about these two games though is the music, and it is really good, guys. So far we have some really good platformers on our hands, and that kind of continues with Super Mario All-Stars, a collection of all the NES Mario games that have been remastered, with new SNES sounds and colors to them. Why Nintendo didn't just put the Super Mario All-Stars plus Super Mario World on here and call it a day, when they just made them separate is beyond me, but it's whatever, it's not a big deal. People have said the physics are slightly off compared to the NES originals, so All-Stars is weird to play for them, but I gotta say, I actually prefer these physics more than the physics in the older games. I'm not even entirely sure why, it just feels nicer to me. Other than that, not much to say here, just the NES Mario games looking a bit nicer all in one small digital package. Super Mario Kart, a game that has not held up very well. I'm sorry, but the controls just feel off. Drifting feels super bad, it's hard to see items most times, and this game reeks of a first generation type of deal. Do I think it's important to look at where things started and see how they improve over time? For sure. But other than that, there's no real reason to come back to this game. Other notable titles include Yoshi's Island, one of the best looking games on the SNES, Star Fox 2, which had been unreleased officially until the SNES Classic Edition in 2017, Super Ghouls and Ghosts, which is still turbo hard, but now it looks better, Super Punch-Out, a pretty decent sequel to the NES game, and for the last time I promise, Super Tennis. Tennis was better.
So that's it.
I'm finally cured. I don't have to play a single NES or SNES game again.
A few moments later.
Guys, I just came back from the doctor and they changed my diagnosis to Atari Jaguaritis. What the heck am I supposed to do now?
What's up? It's Mike, and you better believe it, it's the Christmas season. Now everyone knows with the age-old adage of Christmas comes three things. Those being good food, friends and family, and me talking about Super Mario 64 and the 3D All-Stars collection. All things synonymous with Christmas, I'm quite sure. Like 99.9% sure. The year is 1996, and the next console generation is going to be revolutionary. Together as the human race, we finally discovered the third dimension, which allowed us to do crazy things like not just moving forward and backward. It truly did change the entire landscape of gaming, as games became more immersive, more gripping, and much, much more expensive. In the beginning though, it was a wild west. On one hand you had Crash Bandicoot, and on the other hand there was Bubsy 3D. I've seen games in alpha look better than that.
But there has been one game that has supposedly stood the test of time. One game that set the standard for all of the games that followed. One game that showed what the third dimension could do. One game that changed an industry forever. And that game was tennis.
Or Super Mario 64, depending on who you ask.
Super Mario 64 was released on the Nintendo 64 in North America on September 29th, 1996. And I have just one question. Where the heck did Mario 4 through 63 go? Other than that unsolvable mystery, the game gained a huge positive critical reception on its release, and Super Mario 64 soon turned into the main reason to buy an N64, until Smash Bros. Came out. It also marked one of the biggest and best transitions from 2D to 3D. While other series like Castlevania tried emulating that success, they were unfortunately not as lucky. Nowadays, most people revere Super Mario 64, calling it one of the greatest games of all time. Now tell me that with a straight face when Super Mario Galaxy is literally right there.
Oh, I can see your face curving.
Mario 64 has been re-released on the Virtual Console over probably 1 billion times. Don't quote me on that. And it even got a DS remake of sorts, featuring completely new playable characters including Wario.
Oh, that's exactly what the old game was missing.
The most recent re-release / remaster of Super Mario 64 was on the Super Mario 3D All-Stars collection for the Nintendo Switch, featuring what I would say most people consider the three mainstays of 3D Mario, those being Super Mario 64, Super Mario Sunshine, and Super Mario Galaxy.
3D All-Stars has been called a cash grab by many, and all I gotta say about that is, boy, did it sure work.
Actually, before we begin talking about the sequel to Super Mario 63, let's talk about the 3D All-Stars collection as a whole. Super Mario 3D All-Stars was announced at the Nintendo Mario 35th Anniversary Direct, after being heavily rumored to be on the way. And like I said earlier, it contains the titans of 3D Mario, Mario 64, Sunshine, and Super Mario Galaxy.
Weirdly enough though, Mario Teaches Typing 2 is completely absent from this collection. What the Nintendo?
Not only is that a solid selection of games, it has the full soundtracks to each of these games available through a music player. This doesn't sound like a lot, but considering the last All-Stars on Wii had a CD with sound effects on it, I very much like the music selection here. The game also plays a different song on the menu every time you boot it up, which is kind of neat. Speaking of the menu, I find it very efficient, and that's probably the best way I can put it. It isn't anything mind-blowing, which for a collection featuring some of the greatest games of all time, Super Mario Galaxy, it's a bit unfortunate. I wish there was a bit more personality here, but the overall layout is nice enough, with a demo video for each game and some history.
So overall, Super Mario 3D All-Stars, not considering the games, is pretty lackluster. It's nothing really special, but the presentation does get to the point, and I can give that credit where credit is due.
When you throw the games into the equation, however, things start to get much, much more interesting.
Earlier, I said Super Mario 64 on 3D All-Stars was a re-release / remaster, and let me explain why. From what I can tell, the base game is here and is exactly the same, just underneath some small improvements. The collection does use a later, updated version of the game, which was only released in Japan. There aren't too many differences between this version and the North American version, but the two major differences I could find were the removal of the backwards long jump and the addition of rumble support. I'm honestly kind of disappointed with the rumble support here though. I wish Nintendo implemented some kind of HG rumble functionality here, with bonking into walls or when you're flying, but unfortunately the rumble is just reserved for a slight vibration that really doesn't add on to anything. One thing that does drastically add on to Super Mario 64 and the 3D All-Stars collection is the updated UI and textures. The textures less so, but the UI much more so. Everything just looks so much cleaner and high res, from the text in the text boxes to your health bar to the number of stars you have. It just makes it look way more modern as a whole. The improved textures too can be noticeable, but not as much as the clean looking UI. Another thing they updated were the button prompts, which were changed to align with both the Joy-Cons and the Pro Controller. It's something very small and wouldn't really leave an impact on the game either way, but it's a nice little attention to detail. They also updated the prompts in Mario Sunshine and Super Mario Galaxy, so not bad, Nintendo. Not bad. For the most part, I actually really enjoy how Nintendo did Super Mario 64 here. The art style of the original game is still here, just under a bit of updated visuals to make the collection worthwhile. The only thing I would have maybe preferred more would be a completely remade game with Mario Odyssey visuals, but for the angle they were going with, I think this is pretty good. Now would I prefer a 16:9 version that ran at 60 FPS? Most definitely, and I really hope they at least add that on as an option in the future. But I think being able to play Super Mario 64 efficiently and portably kind of offsets that. The soundtrack of this game still sounds great nowadays, with well-known hits such as Slider and my personal favorite, Slider. But again, when the Super Mario Galaxy soundtrack is right next to it, it's just a bit unfair. Oh, don't mind me, just listening to Slider. But I want to answer your burning question that I'm about 99.9% sure is in the back of your head right now. And that question is, how has Super Mario 64 aged? Pretty decently. Pretty okay. Pretty, yeah? Oh. Okay, put your pitchforks down, it's not that bad. In fact, I would say compared to other games of the era, this is probably aged the best. Looking at you, Crash 1 level design. But out of all of the games in this collection, I found this one to be the least consistent. While pulling off side jumps feels good when it works, there are some times when I do the input and I just jump backwards. This happens with the long jumps as well. And while I can get them much more consistently than the side jumps, there's still 1 or 2 times where the game just says no. The movement in general feels kinda stiff, but at the same time, this stuff was revolutionary back in the day. And you can still see glimmers of it here, just not as much as I would like. One of the areas the controls in this game excel in still is the swimming controls. I think swimming controls genuinely peaked with this game. It feels almost effortless to get through the water, and it makes those water levels actually bearable for me, a feat very few games have ever achieved. This game also introduced the punch to Mario's move kit. I'm sure they'll use that to greater efficiency and expand upon it in Mario Sunshine and Super Mario Galaxy, right? I don't know, does Smash Bros count? One thing that will forever remain timeless in this game though is the level design and the structure. Each of the areas you visit are so memorable and iconic, from Bomb-On Battlefield to Shifting Sand Land to Lethal Lava Land and to the Haunted House. The locations here are super nice. Each one is a nice little open area, which perfectly complements the structure of the game as well. Each world has a certain amount of power stars you get to progress through the game, an idea that set the standard for Sunshine, Super Mario Galaxy, and almost every other 3D Mario game to follow. And then there was Super Mario 3D Land. Nobody still knows what you are yet. One thing that is essentially unique to this game until the release of Super Mario Odyssey was the fact you could get the stars in whatever order you want the majority of the time. With this level of freedom, the player gets to choose what objective they want to tackle next, and that leads to a much more personal connection they can form with the game due to the fact that one person could have completed the game in a completely different way than another person did, making the game that much better. So, What are my overall thoughts about Super Mario 64? I'd say it's definitely a better game than Super Mario 47, but nowhere near as good as Mario 12. And that was also the first game in the 3D All-Stars collection. I can't wait to hit up the sun rays and the beaches of Super Mario Sunshine. You know, maybe not the best time to cover this game. What's up? It's Mike, and I love the holiday weather. It's typically not freezing outside, snow is easily the best form of water, and it just makes everything feel that much more jolly and peaceful. Now let's throw that all away and talk about Super Mario Sunshine, just in time for the holidays.
The year is 2002. Sony's PlayStation 2 has a tight hold on the video game industry, and Nintendo kinda just hung out in the corner with a lunchbox and a Ghostbusters ripoff, until on August 26th, when the long-awaited sequel to Super Mario 64 finally hit store shelves. And although naming it Super Mario 65 would have undoubtedly made it more successful, it was instead dubbed Super Mario Sunshine.
Ah yes. Who could forget everyone's favorite enemy from Super Mario Bros. 3? And you're telling me they named an entire game after him?
While Sunshine doesn't feature the angry sun from Mario 3,
why?
it did feature an entire new world to explore, with something that hadn't been seen in a Mario game prior, or even a Mario game after. Super Mario Sunshine has a vacation-like tropical aesthetic, and it doesn't just stick to that with one area, it permeates throughout the entire game. Every single area in this game does its best to make you feel like you're on an island resort, and compared to the grasslands, desert, snowland, or whatever you have for most of the other Mario titles, I actually found this aesthetic change quite pleasing. Before we get more into the game, let's talk about two things. First, the improvements that 3D All-Stars adds to the game, and the thing I find the most interesting about Super Mario Sunshine, that being its divisiveness. First, most of what 3D All-Stars does just goes towards improving the presentation of the game, and I find the uplift here helps a lot more than it did for Super Mario 64. The various cutscenes in this game look much nicer, and I'm pretty sure they got upscaled. While the game looked great back on the GameCube, the HD facelift the game got here makes it look better than some modern titles. The biggest improvement over the original to me is the 16:9 support. Going from the sometimes cramped feeling of Super Mario 64 to this is like a giant breath of fresh air. This also leads to my only major complaint with this version of the game, and it's the fact that it's still locked at 30 FPS, just like the original. It hurts more when you realize that Super Mario Galaxy got the 60 FPS treatment, even when it's technically newer than Sunshine.
To be fair, they did pick the right game to give 60 FPS to.
The second thing to touch on is the divisive feelings the Mario community as a whole has towards Sunshine. The general consensus is all over the place when it comes to this game, and before the Super Mario 3D All-Stars collection, I had never played this game before. It was a bit before my time, and I grew up with a Wii and Super Mario Galaxy.
So, which camp do I fall into? Do I think Super Mario Sunshine is the best thing Nintendo ever spat out, or do I think it fell pretty flat?
Super Mario Sunshine! Woohoo!
Super Mario Sunshine starts off with Mario getting a water jetpack and being thrown behind bars. You know, your typical Mario affair.
Oh, you remember Super Mario Bros. On the Nintendo Entertainment System when Mario gets thrown in jail?
After that, he's instructed to clean up the whole island or else he's going back into Slammer. So this game really just spits in the face of everything Splatoon stands for. When Mario isn't switching his profession from plumber to janitor, he's collecting shine sprites, this game's equivalent to Power Stars. And he's collecting them with some of the best controls I've ever played with. Seriously, the jump in controls from Super Mario 64 to Super Mario Sunshine is more like a leap into outer space, something we'll also be doing later.
You know, I'm pretty convinced Super Mario Sunshine controls better than I do in real life.
I really don't see people talking about the movement in this game enough. It's so much fun. Jumping around feels solid, but isn't really a Mario game if it didn't. Most of all the moves that Mario 64 introduced transition smoothly here, except the punch?
This is unplayable! Other than that tragedy, the dive in this game makes maneuvering around fantastic. I would complain about the lack of a long jump, but the dive is so satisfying to use, I can't really argue with the decision. The side jump returns as well. I'm not sure what it was about Super Mario 64, but the issue I had performing side jumps completely evaporated when I started playing Sunshine. And same with the triple jump. They also introduced the spin jump. I'm sure they'll use that to greater efficiency and expand upon it in Super Mario Galaxy, right? I don't know, does Smash Bros count? Wait, that doesn't make any sense. Well, not as perfect as Super Mario Odyssey was, I think Sunshine took a big leap in that direction. You know, I've praised the controls for Sunshine a lot already, and I haven't even mentioned Flood yet. You remember that water jetpack I mentioned around 400 words ago? Well, that water jetpack has a name, thank you very much, and that name is Flood, the Flash Liquidizer Ultra Dousing Device, aka the shameless Luigi Mansion tie-in. When I went into Sunshine, I thought Flood was essentially gonna be a power-up. It just helped you here or there in very specific scenarios, but oh, how naive I was. If Flood was a power-up, then Flood is one hell of a power-up. You know how in all the action movies when the instructor tells the main character, you need to treat this weapon like it's a part of your body to master it, or something like that? You know what I'm talking about. Well, in terms of Super Mario Sunshine, Flood is the weapon in this case. And not only does it help in those specific circumstances, like getting over large pits with the hover nozzle or getting up to high places with the rocket nozzle, it also opens up the floodgates to new ways to move and exciting platforming challenges. See what I did there? Because I sure can't. Spraying water and then diving turns every surface into a slip and slide for Mario, letting him zip along long distances. The hover nozzle allows for easier tight platforming and acts as a get out of jail free card while not being very easily abusable. So if you guys can't tell, I love Flood. So let's talk about my personal favorite part of the game, the time where you don't have Flood. Every area has a lovely beach/resort aesthetic as talked about earlier, and while initially I loved the artistic choice, I did start to miss the creative environments of Super Mario 64 a tad bit. In each of these areas though, there is a secret stage, which essentially is a small platforming challenge without the use of Flood. And I found these to be wonderful. The secret stages really highlight the amazing regular controls, and all of the ones I played had a decent level of difficulty while still being fair, except the one time the camera repeatedly wished for my demise, and doing all of it while listening to a bopping rendition of the Super Mario Bros. Overall theme makes the secret stages one of the best additions to Mario Sunshine. Oh, don't mind me, just listening to Secret Course. It's time to talk about something I didn't even refer to in the Super Mario 64 episode, that being the story. While the story itself isn't all too different from the regular Mario affair, except, you know, getting thrown in jail, it's the stuff that surrounds it that makes it interesting to me. First off, whoever decided to add voice acting to this game deserves a large raise.
What's this icky paint-like goop?
Jokes aside, while the voice acting is very hit or miss, it gets the job done, and honestly, it adds to the cutscenes fairly nicely. Just don't expect to be surprised when you look at the awards Super Mario Sunshine earned and there's no Oscars there. What? Are you kidding me? The cutscenes in this game, minus the voice acting, aren't terrible. I've seen much worse, and there's just something about them that's charming. As far as I can tell too, Super Mario Sunshine was the first major Mario game that featured full cutscenes. Nowadays it's fairly common to see, but I'm sure the people who played Sunshine as their first Mario game were quite confused. I mean, I was still confused, and this by far isn't my first Mario rodeo. They also introduced some Mario standards into this game, like Bowser Jr., Shadow Mario, and the fact that at some point Peach and Bowser banged. You know, the craziest thing is that won't even be enough. Now that neither of us can unsee that, let's look at Delfino Plaza. It's a pretty good hub world, and although I prefer the hallways and open courtyard of Peach's Castle more, I do think Delfino Plaza is much bigger and better in some areas. You can even explore the sewers to a good remix of the NES Underground theme, which is a pretty neat touch. Overall, I feel this game has held up a lot better than Mario 64. The controls picked up really nicely here, and they feel much more timeless than Mario 64's controls. The camera didn't hate me, for the most part, and the story, while similar to most Mario tales, has some fresh twist on it to make it more engaging. The tropical environment also provided for a cool getaway from typical Mario tropes. The voice acting was there, and to be completely honest, I like this game more than Super Mario 64. Scratch that, I forgot the Sandbird level existed. And that's all I have to say about Super Mario Sunshine. Honestly, I was really pleasantly surprised with this game, and I can definitely see myself replaying it over the likes of Super Mario 64. But now, it's finally time to cover my personal favorite game of all time. And not only that, just in time for Christmas. Wow, it's just great how those things work out. But anyways, it's finally time. It's finally here. It's finally time to talk about Super Mario Galaxy. What happened? Where am I? Who am I? Wait a second. I remember this place. This is my old set. I can barely add and subtract in my algebra class. But why is the chair blue now? Feels good to be back. What was that? Oh, I just asked myself this, but who the heck are you?
The real question here is, how are you?
You know, I was doing pretty well, until everything glitched out on me and the primordial school bus dropped me off to wherever the heck this place is.
I'm gonna take a shot in the dark here and ask if you said Super Mario Galaxy 12 times over the course of 20 minutes.
Did I?
Super Mario Galaxy, 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 Super Mario Galaxy,
Super Mario Galaxy. Oh, I guess I did.
Oh, I knew it!
Okay, but how did you even guess that?
Well, it is really the only way in here.
That's neat, but where is here?
I mean, you're right there.
Thanks, that really answered my question.
No problem. I've been called the most helpful person in this MikeSpike for about a year running.
Oh, good for you! Wait, did you say the Spike Sanctorium?
Yep, and I can even give you a map if you want.
This is just a picture of a tennis court.
Anytime. You got any other questions?
Yeah, I just have one tiny question. How the heck do I get back?
Finally, a decent question, but the answer to it is you have to complete a challenge I never could. Complete a challenge that is almost too hard for most mortal men, and a challenge that has locked many into eternal imprisonment. That many in person being me.
Oh, spit it out already.
Fine, I was trying to hype it up, but here you go. You have to complete Super Mario Galaxy on the 3D All-Stars collection, and find no flaws with it, thus truly making it the greatest game of all time. Are you willing to accept?
And you're telling me you've been stuck here for a year trying to do that?
Trust me, it's much harder.
Oh, I got this. No biggie.
We'll see about that.
Don't worry, Mr. Optimism. I'll get this done in no time.
I mean, there is something else.
Hey, Ray of Sunshine, don't worry about it. All I have to do is talk about Super Mario Galaxy. What could possibly go wrong?
Released on the Nintendo Wii in 2007, Super Mario Galaxy was put in development immediately after the development of a similar style game. That game, of course, being Donkey Kong Jungle Beat. Galaxy's main gimmick per se was the movement around spherical platforms, a bit of technology stolen from the Mario 128 tech demo, which consisted of 127 Marios running around on a shape-shifting landscape meant to simulate the power of the GameCube.
There were 127 Marios? I thought it was Mario 128.
Oh, I was just pulling your leg. There were actually 126 Marios.
Ah, gotcha.
The other big part of Mario Galaxy's development was the fact that it was set to be a more large-scale Mario adventure, following advice from the man, the myth, and the legend himself, Shigeru Miyamoto. This is obviously displayed in the game, something we'll dive into a little bit later. On release, critics heaped praise upon it, with some calling it one of the best video games ever made, getting several 10 out of 10s from major outlets. And then there was GameSpot, giving it the lowest score out of everyone with a 9.5 out of 10.
This is unplayable.
And the sales seem to agree with the critics, with Super Mario Galaxy chilling at the number 3rd spot of the highest selling non-bundled Wii game.
Some things are just too powerful for this world, and one of those things is Wii Sports.
To this day, Super Mario Galaxy is praised by many, and as someone who grew up with said game, I can tell you the praise is definitely warranted. The gameplay is rock solid, the amount of new and fun ideas being thrown at you the whole time is almost nauseating, in a good way of course. The presentation is amazing, and while the game looked beautiful even for a Wii game, the 3D All-Stars collection somehow makes it look even better. And the music, don't even get me started on the music.
See, I like this game.
As we have before, let's talk about the improvements that are in the 3D All-Stars port. And it's pretty much the same song and dance as Sunshine in 64, with some things added specifically for here. Everything looks much cleaner, from the text boxes to Bowser's beautiful forehead, and honestly this spruce up makes the biggest difference out of all of the games in 3D All-Stars. This may sound weird, as I just said a couple seconds ago that it already looked good on the Wii, but trust me, this game on the Switch could easily be mistaken for a game that was just released in the past 3 or so years, even though it actually came out 14 years ago.
Ouch.
The other thing they did was make the Joy-Cons, or the Pro Controller, whichever you're using, your new replacement for the Wiimote pointer, and it works very well. Occasionally you have to recenter it, but it's not a big deal at all. But that's not all. As for when you're playing in handheld mode, which it's absolutely insane to think about how you can just take this game completely on the go, at least for me. You just used a touchscreen as your pointer. While it's not exactly a perfect solution, for the options they had, this was likely the best one. And the craziest thing is, we haven't even gone to the best change they made to Super Mario Galaxy here. Unironically, the best change they made in the 3D All-Stars Collection version of the game was the ability to spin just by pressing the Y button. I know to the unobserved eye this sounds very minuscule, and although I don't mind the waggle too much back on the Wii, having the option to just press Y and spin makes playing through the game even more comfortable, especially when playing in handheld mode. You also get less misinputs, though I never had a major issue with the motion controls to begin with. Using a button to spin just feels so natural, and Nintendo didn't have to add it in at all, but the fact they did makes Super Mario Galaxy just that much better. One last thing about the 3D All-Stars version, and that's that the game runs at 60 FPS just like the original. Playing Super Mario Galaxy on the Switch feels so smooth, and I don't remember a single instance of lag.
Honestly, playing Super Mario Galaxy on here feels so smooth, it's really hard to go back to the other games that just run at 30.
I mean, who needs those games anyway? We're only talking about Super Mario 64 and Super Mario Sunshine here.
Exactly!
So yeah, the updates to Super Mario Galaxy on the 3D All-Stars collection is pretty sick. Now you haven't even gotten to the base game yet.
I would complain about you wasting my time, but I've been here for a year already. So what's a couple minutes more?
I feel that while Super Mario Sunshine exponentially increased the quality of the controls from Super Mario 64, Super Mario Galaxy essentially just honed in on what Sunshine did without reinventing the wheel. The name of the game is If It Ain't Broke, Don't Fix It, and Galaxy does a wonderful job at that. The triple jump and the side jump returned from 64 and Sunshine, and while they removed the dive move, they did bring back the long jump. And as a long jump connoisseur myself, I'm totally down with the move. It feels especially satisfying in this game, as you could just long jump for an insanely long time over the sides of planets and the like, and it just feels great. Everything feels more responsive than ever, and adding the spin move on top makes this one of the best controlling games I've ever played. Even back on the Wii with the Wii Remote and Nunchuck, this game felt good to control, but the fact I can use the Switch Pro Controller is amazing. I've always dreamed of using a conventional controller since I first played Galaxy, like with my classic controller Pro or something, and having it now makes me realize I had a pretty good dream going on there, except for the fact it's reality now, which makes it even better.
Speaking of which, am I in a dream right now?
Are you?
So remind me how you got to be the most helpful person in the Spike Sanctorium for a year running again.
It helps being the only person here, except for...
Ah, it all makes sense now.
Going back to the spin move, it acts as essentially a Swiss Army knife for this game. You spin to hit levers, you spin to attack enemies, you spin to kill Bowser, you spin to extend your jumps, you spin to fly to faraway worlds, you spin to hop to small planets, you spin to pay your taxes. It really is a one-size-fits-all move.
Wait, you're telling me all I had to do was spin this whole time?
Yep.
I'm paying my accountant way too much.
Between all the new moves Super Mario 64 added and the addition of Flood and Sunshine, I really think that the spin was the best addition to any of the 3D Mario games. It really is that versatile. It also helps ease players into the unique style of platforming that this game flaunts, with it being spherical and gravity-bending platforming, with a bunch of different twists on it throughout the game to keep it feeling fresh. Honestly, it's such a cool game mechanic, you could probably get 2 games just out of that idea alone.
Wait, didn't they make a second one?
I mean, it's on this collection, so there probably isn't.
Sounds good to me.
Lastly, for the gameplay, I'll touch on the various of what I like to call "I'm here because the Wiimote is big cool" things in this game, including the bubble blower, the ball rolling, and the manta ray sections. All I can say about those is that I really think they put a neat spin in this game.
That was an awfully nervous laugh.
Oh nah, I just have a condition where I nervously laugh every time I talk about the manta ray sections in Super Mario Galaxy.
I must say, that's completely understandable.
Before we get into the presentation, I want to really quickly touch on 2 things. First, the hub world, which is called the Cosmic Observatory, and also the introduction of Rosalina. The Cosmic Observatory, while not the biggest hub world nor the most active one compared to the other 3D Mario titles, is easily my favorite one. That could mainly be due to the fact of how it slowly and obviously gets bigger and brighter over the course of the game, and something about that is just so charming, and it really makes you feel like you're progressing through the game. And quickly about Rosalina, I don't want to spoil too much about her, because for what feels like the first time ever, Nintendo actually seemed to care about the story of one of their characters for once. Providing an entire backstory for her through a storybook you gain access to more as you progress through the game. The story isn't anything life-changing, but it's extremely cool that Nintendo added it in, making the Mario world actually feel like a world for a change, with real people and real motivations for their actions and the like.
Wait, you're telling me that Nintendo not only added a backstory to one of their characters, but included it in-game too? You might be onto something with this whole being in a dream thing.
I'd say my intuition's pretty alright. After that, let's talk about the overall presentation of Super Mario Galaxy, as I think it's one of the biggest factors that makes this game completely unique to any other title in the storied Mario franchise. This is mainly due to how the game approaches itself, and if I could describe it in one word, it would undoubtedly be cinematic. Miyamoto wanted a larger scale Mario game, and it oozes from every inch of Super Mario Galaxy, from the story to the music and just the premise as a whole. Now, how do you make a Mario story large scale, you ask?
I have a suggestion.
Well, what do you think they did?
Bowser doing something other than kidnapping Peach and taking over the Mushroom Kingdom?
Actually, you're pretty close. I think when the story writers heard what Miyamoto wanted, they took the whole large-scale thing a little too literally. The game starts with you heading over to Peach's castle, actually very reminiscent of the introduction to Super Mario 64. This time, however, it takes place during the Star Festival, an event that happens every 100 years in celebration of a comet that one time just dumped a truckload of stardust on the Mushroom Kingdom, which the Toads took and turned into the Power Stars, another homage to the pre-prequel of Super Mario 66. Now, it's Mario's turn to celebrate the stars, but on his way to Peach's castle, something extremely unexpected happened.
Oh, did Peach get kidnapped?
Kind of. So Peach gets kidnapped, but this time, Bowser decides to stop messing around. And not only does he kidnap her and all the Power Stars, he literally kidnaps the entirety of Peach's castle by yanking it off the ground after cutting it out of the earth with lasers from alien UFOs. And if you can't see how Nintendo is trying to be cinematic here, I don't know what to tell you. Also, just thinking about the entire premise of this game. In almost all the other Mario games, you're just traversing the Mario equivalent to Earth, which if my math dictates, is only one planet. In Super Mario Galaxy, however, you're literally traveling through the vast void of space, and if my math dictates correctly again, you travel to a little bit more than just one planet. But this isn't what sells the more dramatic and cinematic tone of this game to me. No, not by a long shot. But what does is the music. I've wanted to talk about the music of this game for years, as Super Mario Galaxy has, without a shadow of a doubt, the best soundtrack to any video game ever made. I just said how I wanted to talk about this game's music for years, and even with all of that time to think about it, some songs in this soundtrack make it almost impossible to describe with just words. From the second you open up the game, Super Mario Galaxy slaps you in the face with orchestral bliss, and it doesn't let up for the rest of the game. From the first galaxy you visit,
to the music in the Cosmic Observatory that actually builds up to this beautiful and whimsical piece by the end of the game. To the amazingly epic final boss music. This is the first Mario game to feature a completely orchestrated soundtrack, and it perfectly adds to the more cinematic and larger-than-life nature of Super Mario Galaxy. It would be impossible for this game to pull off what it does without this soundtrack. I think the best way I can describe why the music is so good is because it perfectly amplifies and adds on to everything around it, which is what I think the best thing a video game soundtrack could do. All of this comes together, and in my opinion peaks, with one singular song from this soundtrack, which most people agree on is the god amongst a sea of titans that is the Super Mario Galaxy OST. That song being the one and only Gusty Garden Galaxy. It's just so perfect. I'm no music major, and I know next to nothing about the composition of music, but holy heck, what they pulled off here should probably be considered of witchcraft. No song has ever sent shivers up my spine and made me feel happier than this one song, and I think it perfectly encapsulates the best game of all time, Super Mario Galaxy.
Yo man, are you okay? I'm also considered the best first aid person in the entirety of the Spike Sanctorium for a year running now.
No, I'm fine. I just have a condition where I get a bad cough every time I'm about to say something bad about Super Mario Galaxy.
But this game isn't perfect. Oh, it sure isn't. You have to reset your pointer so many times it gets frustrating. The swimming controls are awfully imprecise and really annoying to use. Sometimes you just run around in circles. The manta ray levels, oh, and the bubble blowing and ball rolling games don't have a place here at all, and they're literally just there to add needless motion controls, and it's not even subtle. The camera isn't great, all of the bunny chasing missions are just super annoying and the antithesis of fun, and I just really hate the ball rolling missions.
Is this what a leaf blower feels like?
Hey, I'm sorry man, but I guess you failed. You just found several flaws with Super Mario Galaxy, so I guess it's not the greatest game of all time. Guess you're stuck here with me for a while.
But don't you get it? Yes, Super Mario Galaxy has its flaws. And yes, the ball rolling sections are really bad. But in an objective sense, nothing is perfect. I'm definitely not, and I assume you aren't either. Every game has its flaws. From the most critically acclaimed games of all time to Sonic Lost World on the 3DS. My point is, Super Mario Galaxy may not be objectively perfect, but to me, it is. The gameplay is the standard done perfectly, the story is properly amped up with the rest of the game to make it interesting, plus with Rosalina's own personal backstory, the presentation is unique and contributes to an amazing experience, and the music is some of the most beautiful and moving sounds to ever grace both the video game and the music medium. Super Mario Galaxy was the game that introduced me to Mario. It was the game that made me want to make videos in the first place. To make something that would make other people smile and laugh, just as much as that game did for me. Super Mario Galaxy made me who I am today, and that's why it's the greatest game of all time, and why no game will ever top it. Boy, was it getting hot in there, but nothing gets me going like a speech about how Super Mario Galaxy is the greatest game of all time. Are you me from the first episode? Yes and no. Oh, I can finally see that most helpful person in the Spike Sanctorium Award finally paying off. Well, it took me a while to figure out myself, but from what I can guess, I assume I'm from a branching timeline where when you didn't, I decided to say Super Mario Galaxy 12 times in a row really quickly after I was done producing the Switch episode. Well, I guess us MikeSpikes are pretty good at falling into the saying Super Mario Galaxy 12 times in a row in short succession trap. You could say that again. Sure, maybe some other time, but I think I finally proved to you that Super Mario Galaxy is the greatest game of all time. So now, how do I get out? Well, it's not exactly me you have to convince. We'll have to talk to him. Alright, so who's him? Also, you never answered my question earlier on why your picture of a map is just a tennis court.
There's a reason for that.
Oh, it's you. Super Tennis.
Insult me once, shame on me. Insult me twice, shame on you.
Did I? Super Nintendo Entertainment System Online. Super Tennis isn't that good either. 6 out of 10.
And for the last time, I promise, Super Tennis. Tennis was better.
Oh yeah, I guess I did that.
You may have passed the test, but the only real way out is through me.
Hey, that's not what I agreed to.
Let's just say our terms were flexible.
No! No! Yo man, that was stupid of you. Are you okay? Yeah, I'm fine. But you won't be fine if you can't beat him. Remember the past, man. Remember the past. Think of the past, think of the past, think of the past. What does that mean? That's so cryptic. That's like something from the first Zelda game. What does think of the past mean? Wait! Nintendo Entertainment System Online. NES Tennis isn't really that good. 4 out of 10.
One of my particular favorites is actually Mario Tennis I'm just kidding, it's just tennis. Sometimes the hit detection is a little wonky, but I find it quite addictive considering how simple the game is. And it somehow still manages to be better than Mario Tennis Ultra Smash. That game just can't catch a break.
Hey, Tennis on NES. I know I called you bad that one time, but more recently I finally actually played you, and I realized how good you truly were. And I could really use some tennis-related help right now. Thanks, NES Tennis.
Oh, you have your own racket now? Well, what are you gonna do when you have nothing to hit me with it?
You may be strong, you may be powerful, super even, but I have something more super. Get spiked! Well, what's going on now? Well, if I had to guess, that means we're going back to our respective timelines. That's some pretty good intuition. You would know. Thanks, and just a word of advice. Yeah? Don't just disappear for 10 months without telling anybody, okay? Why would I ever do that? You'll figure it out. Okay? Good luck! Oh geez, he still has to go through 2020, doesn't he? Oh hey, I'm finally back! And everything appears to be in order too. Well, I did have to sacrifice Super Mario Galaxy, and even though it was my absolute favorite game of all time, that's okay. There are plenty of other games to play, and maybe now I can finally get around to 100% completing Super Mario Odyssey. What was that? Santa? Ho ho ho! You look skinny, Ho ho ho! I know, the workout regimen I've been on is finally paying off after a couple of centuries, but I'm not here to talk. I've got a bit of a busy schedule tonight. Oh yeah, it's Christmas! Ho ho ho, yes sirree, and I'm also here to tell you you're on the nice list. May I ask how? Well, you were on the naughty list there for a sec, but as an NES tennis fan myself, the fact you changed your mind about it made me change my mind about you. I guess that works. It sure does. Anyway, I got a present for you, and Merry Christmas. Oh, thanks, Well, he's gone. Wonder what he got me. Well, that was the weirdest Christmas of my life, but hey, at least I finally got Super Mario Galaxy back! What's up, it's Mike, and boy, do I have a story to tell you guys!